Good morning, Giants. Welcome to Wake Up with Giants TV. Have you ever wondered about red hot success? This isn't that. This is hot pink success, baby, and it's happening today. It's time to wake up the Giants. Woo! Good morning, Giants. Welcome to Wake Up with Giants TV. I am Ryan Morris, co-creator of Wake Up with Giants TV, a tribe of giants, and 12 Journeys coaching, and also wrote in a book called The Journey of Riches. That's how I do it, Nick. I razzle dazzle with my signed.
That's how marketing works these days, I think.
Yeah,
it's perfect.
Show the backside,
right?
Not my backside, the backside of the book. That marketing works.
Because if you knew your backside, you would shave that.
Yeah, yes, right? 100%. Yeah. And see, it did again.
Dude, that worked.
And I'm here with Nicholas T. Smith, the author of The Giants and the Smalls, which is the whole reason why we're here in the first place. He started an entire movement, and I just got to be along for the ride, and it's awesome. And he is also the creator of all those other things and so much more. If you look on the shelf behind him, you also see the tortoise's hair there as well, and some other books. He's got books on books on books, and he's helped thousands and thousands of people.
Thank you, man.
And so we're excited. We've got an amazing show today, but we also have some announcements. We've got our SG group. Nick, will you tell us about our SG group that's starting soon?
I'm going to pull that up here because it turned out beautifully. So just updated the website. So no more dust in construction. So you can actually go check it out, my12journeys.com, go to Sum Gigante. You'll see the little button up here, Ready to Rise. Go click on that and read through every word. And as you do that, we're going to steal a little bit from the being movement here is read this on how this can impact you in your life and how you can start to live into that giant that's already there. So with the Giant's journey, there's no becoming a giant. There's just unbecoming everything that makes you feel small. And so in these programs, when we do this, it's a 6-week deep dive into the 12 journeys. You get access to all of the tools that we have available to you, which is the workbook, the AI applications, the new 12 journey stories. And so there's a metaphor for each of the journeys, plus the science and research behind these. So they're both metaphorical and scientific. So I wanted to blend the two worlds, and you're not going to get access to those anywhere else. The new applications, the mirror and the bridge, are going to be available inside of the 12 Journeys program. They're incredible. If you're doing any kind of self-discovery, people get burned out by personal development because it just seems like they're not changing. They keep doing it, and nothing changes. I got into that. And so our commitment here is to do things that actually create long-lasting, lifelong change in you and transformation. And that starts with looking at the stories you're telling and rewriting those. So we're going to help you do that. So go check it out. Go read it. If it speaks to you, you need to grab your seat because we're starting June 14th. So we're only 2 weeks away from launching the next cohort. And if you're not ready for that, at the very bottom here, we have a quiz that you can take right there. Right there. I'll get there eventually. Or if you need to reach out, just reach out and to either myself or Ryan, and we'll have a conversation with you. So I've got his beautiful mug right here. Mr. Ryan Morris right there, co-creator. So come learn about us. Come learn about the 12 Journeys. This is a powerful program. This is our 16th cohort. Absolutely won't be the last cohort, but you are running out of time to join this one, and it's going to be amazing. Outside of that, we're just building our community. My12journeys.com is where you can see the hub for everything. So go there and check it out if you want to see what we're up to. And Rebecca, your face is going to be on here pretty quick as the latest video.
Yay.
So, here's another cool thing. We did songs for the movie. So if you want to listen to some amazing music on Giants and Smalls, go to Spotify, our playlist. You can click on it right here and access that. But we're going to get Rebecca Shannon. Where are you at? You're going to show up right here on our screen. So we're excited for you. Anything else, Ryan, that's on?
No, that's just why we invite beautiful humans, so that our website looks much better. Because if it was left to my ugly mug,
Ryan, it'd be like nobody would ever show up.
Right. Look at those two dudes. I'm not clicking on anything.
It looks like a dude fest. Sounds no fun. The other thing is there's a change to StreamYard. You'll see comments show up over on the right-hand side in the open space there. So as you comment, they'll show up there. But I think you may have to go to YouTube, to our YouTube channel, to comment. And so we'll invite you over there to do that. Otherwise, we might not see them. Facebook is changing everything. So
sorry, Facebook. Wake up with Giants TV. Go subscribe and hit the alert button so you know when we go live every single dang time. Yeah,
exactly. Go do it. I don't know why you haven't done it yet. Let's throw some shame, because shame really works at creating change. Well, let's jump in. We got a great guest today. She doesn't mess around. I had the chance to work with her on some of her creations, and she's known for her no-nonsense approach to leadership and empowerment. With over 20 years of experience across the UK and Europe, she's helped executives, entrepreneurs, and corporate teams stop overcomplicating things and start taking bold, effective action. She's a straight shooter who cuts through self-sabotage and delivers real-world strategies that actually work. So you want something that actually works, you're going to want to stay right here. Her clients say she's like a mirror. She'll show you what's really holding you back, but she'll also guide you to find the answers and rise above it. So you're going to get honesty, wisdom, and tools that you can use right now. Please help us welcome Rebecca Shannon to the show.
Hello. Good to be here. We just worked out before we came on. It's pretty much 9 months to the day since I was last on the show.
And that is so crazy. Yeah.
So we could have created a small life.
Yeah. Ryan, you are not the father. You asked if we could see him. You can see the comment. They're so tiny. I hope they make those bigger one day over on the bottom right. Do you see that?
Yeah.
I can see Hugh.
I can make it bigger.
We can do that
Hugh.
We see
you, Hugh.
Well, we got a few people joining us, so we're good here. So Rebecca, we're focused on this, on the success principles. So in our first 320 plus episodes, it was all about the inner world. It was about what's going on in you. What are the stories you're telling? How do you rewrite those? Now it's how do you express in the outer world? What are some of the success strategies, the principles that help you to navigate? We're going to go through the 6 growth journeys. So there's 5 growth and 1 legacy journey, which is the fruit of everything we do. Yep. We'll start with uncertainty, the journey of uncertainty, because we all face it, and we try to pretend like we know what's going to happen next. So we create our lives around creating consistency and certainty, and then we get stuck in loops. And so life doesn't really change. It just repeats. And so I'm curious about what you believe about uncertainty, and what are some of the ways that you navigate the unknown?
Yeah, it's really funny you start there, because it's been a real topic this week that's come up several times, actually, the idea of uncertainty and getting a bit lost. All right. So I was running my leadership program this week and pulled a card which was about getting lost and the treasures that we can find when we get lost. The problem is we don't really like it, right? The feeling we get when we feel a little lost or a little uncertain of where we're going, actually the feeling that comes up is, I don't like this. I want certainty. I want safety. So the first thing that I point people towards is to recognize that feeling, because it is just a feeling. And like, as we know, feelings will pass very, very quickly. It's our thoughts about the feelings that have them stay around and loop around. So the first thing is just to recognize it and think, you know what if I see that feeling as excitement about the unknown? Because life can be, most of us complain that life is pretty boring, right? And quite predictable. And then when some uncertainty comes along, we then have the same feelings about that. It's like, now I want certainty. So the first thing is just to recognize that the feeling of like uncertainty, feeling a bit lost, is quite close to the feeling of excitement. Right? I always talk about it. I'm not a big roller coaster fan, but it's like the bit at the top where it's like a mix of like utter terror and real excitement, right? Because you're about to go wee down the roller coaster, and that's kind of life, right? So it's a choice. So what I point people towards is, one, think about times in your life, and you talk about metaphors a lot, right? And bring those in. Is think about a time in your life where you felt a little lost, either literally or you've just felt a little lost, and then just slow down and think about what occurred in that time. We use the idea, we were talking in the group, the leadership group, and someone mentioned about, going on a walk and walking around a corner and seeing the most incredible sunset that they'd ever seen. That if they hadn't got a little bit lost, they never would have seen it. So we had real life examples of that. When you get a bit lost, often you find treasures. You might find that coffee shop you've never been to, the sunset you've not seen, the beach that you didn't know was there, all those sorts of things. But also when we actually look back at times of our lives where we feel a little bit lost, right?
Yeah.
And Nick, you've been with me in some of my moments of feeling a little bit lost. Is actually out of it, something incredible tends to show up, something that we didn't know. Because if we keep operating within the field of what we know and what we know we don't know, it's just going to keep being the same. So if we ever want to expand, grow, get more success, have more money, get better relationships, we actually have to go beyond what we know, which in itself means we need an element of uncertainty.
Oh, I like that. I like that. I thought of the story of the monkeys. When they capture monkeys, they put the bananas into the tree trunk. It's small enough to get their hand out into, but as soon as they grab that banana, they can't get their hand out, and they won't let go of the banana. And so they come along and capture them. And that's what we do with our lives, is we've got a hold of these moldy bananas in our lives, and we won't let go of them because they're safe, right? There's this, it's not even that they're safe. They just create this sense of safety and certainty.
Yeah.
And
I think the other thing with, with uncertainty is it's a great place to play, because if there's no certainty, then there's no restrictions. So, I know you guys know that, in our subconscious, if we plant images in our subconscious, it doesn't really it doesn't rationalize them. It doesn't go, that's not possible. It just goes, oh, okay, we'll do that then. So when we feel a little bit lost or we feel a little bit uncertain about stuff, create something. We also know that everything.
Yeah.
I love bananas too.
But you got to let go of the moldy ones.
Yeah. Or make banana bread, right? Just make some banana bread.
Yeah. It's, everything comes from nothing, right? Nothing existed, nothing around you right now, even this technology we're speaking on. It didn't exist until someone imagined it. Right? So in the uncertainty, go into your imagination, go into your dreams, go into your subconscious and plant whatever freaking images you want, right? Of what it is you want. Certainty, not from a place of safety and small and known, but plant something completely out of the known universe in there and have some fun with it. Because if we can be so sure that it's not going to be that way, we can also be really sure that it could be. Right? So I'm doing a lot of work at the moment in this. I'm doing a money program at the moment about our ability to hold the energy of money and also create in our imagination. Because if everything is created from nothing, then we can create anything in our imagination.
Well, I didn't lose you. My camera lost you, but I'm still here.
What's funny is a bit fed up there,
I'm there somewhere. We'll see if I get it back. Ryan often says, like, how much crap do you have? Not crap, but stuff do you have in there? Like every week there's a new story or something else that I pull out of it's almost like the clown car, right? They're just a never ending train of
Mary Poppins bag.
Yeah.
But that's how literally every single thing on this planet was created in the Mary Poppins bag, right? The clown. It did not exist until someone thought it, till it was sparked into someone's imagination.
Let's play with that, because now we're going to jump into abundance, which is the idea that everything we need to create anything we can imagine is already here. We just have to transform it. So when you say it didn't exist, it came from nothing. Well, nothing comes from nothing. So I got to challenge that phrasing a little bit. Is nothing comes from nothing. Is that the stuff that we need is here. It's up to us to imagine and transform what is into what we have in mind, right? So a little bit of a play there.
Yeah.
and challenge me on that.
Well, no, I think nothing is because people can resonate with that, right?
Okay.
And the reason I use it is because, when somebody's a bit stuck and they're feeling like they don't know what's next, they need something tangible still to hold on to be able to get them to move. So nothing becomes something tangible, if you like.
Got it.
So the reason I use that phraseology, and I do get where you're coming from, is they want something. Something that, even if it's nothing, if that makes sense, so that they have a starting point. And what I want to point them to is, of course, it's not nothing, because it's already there, right?
Yeah.
It would have been drip fed into you by people you'd spoken to, conversations you've had, inner wisdom that we have, connection to source. It could be a download, depending on what your beliefs are about that. It could be a story you read, a book you read, who knows where it is. So yes, it's not nothing, but what that gives them is the idea that you don't have to have a tangible thing, because a lot of the time when we talk about like leadership, is a lot of the time we're told to get out of our heads, to get out of our imagination, to live in the real world, right? Stop daydreaming. And so the reason I point people back to that is everything was created in a daydream or a dream or a thought. It didn't exist. So when people tell us to get out of our dreams and come and, get your feet on the ground and stop daydreaming, the thing they're telling us, like, this phone that I've got in front of me, that was somebody's thought. It was an imagination. It came from not nothing, something, but it came out of nowhere. Okay, maybe saying it out, come out of nowhere is better. And then that person went, oh, okay, well, what would it be like if we had some form of communication that we could carry around in our hands and never put down?
Yeah.
And
somebody had one of those corded phones that's like 6 miles long through their house, that like wraps around hallways and doors, and
they're like, this is getting ridiculous. What about if we don't have the cord?
I was watching Commando with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and the bad guy in it has this radio case with a phone off of it back in the 80s, and it's like, oh, dude, that is so cool. And it's like nobody had these. So when he's rummaging through all their information, he's rummaging through an actual wallet, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, you guys need to catch up, right? All this tech.
Yeah, exactly, right. But isn't that, the 80s?
Let off some steam, Bennett.
The 80s isn't that long ago, and look at everything that's been created that did not exist.
Yeah,
did not exist, and out of nowhere, all of these. So if that's true for everything that's happened so far in the universe, right? Everything you can touch around you. Why not the thing that's waiting to come forward from you?
Yeah.
Giants and smalls didn't exist.
Did not exist.
When I know, here's an idea, and I'm going to play with this story, and then I'm going to write a book, and then it's going to become a movement, right?
Yeah.
So before that, it didn't exist.
Your stuff. So we got a chance to work on your creations, and Richard Paul Evans, I'll tie this together, says that chaos is the mine of creation. And the whole universe is the mine of creation, and it's chaotic until you put it together. And so when we look at the stuff that we create, now that stuff that we've created becomes the chaos we get to mine from. So not only did we create it, now it's the resource that we need for other things. And the challenge in the past has been accessing all that content and turning it into something. And you and I work together to create some tools for you to extract all that gold, because it's just been sitting there in piles and piles. And now you're able to extract all that gold and actually use it in a way that's even more useful, right?
Absolutely. And, and total plug here for Nick, the work that he did with me was fantastic and has enabled me to do that, because one of the things that I was experiencing as a coach was, I coach very intuitively. So, I'm not as organized as these guys. I don't have, a 12 journey program. I don't have all of that stuff. And yet one of my gifts is that when I'm speaking to somebody, I can, again, pull out of nowhere, right? From my, inherent wisdom, knowledge, all the things I've read, all the people I've worked with, everything that I've ever experienced, and maybe some things I haven't, right?
Yeah.
I can come up with something in that moment that will support that person. And then when I started working with Nick, what I said was, I know there's gold in there, and I want to share it with more people than I'm working with right now. I'm a really, really world-class coach. And how do I make sure that other people know that about me? Because I want to be working with those people. I want these things that I'm working with, the people that I am working with, to get to more people. So as Nick said, we're taking every little bit of gold that comes up, and some of it isn't gold, right? Some of it's, just okay, but
fool's gold. Yeah, it's okay.
Gold.
Yeah.
And we've found ways, like you say, to then create something. It's exactly what we're talking about. Until I went on to that call with my client, and they asked that question. I am also a world-class hugger, that's true. When they asked that question, I didn't know what the answer was until they asked the question.
Yeah.
So it's a great example of something coming out of nowhere. They had a question, I have an answer, and then said like, oh, here's something that we can now share with other people who didn't know they had that question.
We need to stay here for a bit. I got that nudge. We got to stay in abundance so people can hear what we mean when we say abundance. I was taught growing up, abundance is wealth, it's cars, it's houses, it's vacations, it's food. And that's how I was taught about abundance. I think many of us were. And it's totally incorrect. Yeah, that is a result of abundance. Those are things that can come from abundance, and they become part of the abundance too.
Mm-hmm.
But the abundance, I think it was Wayne Dyer who said that abundance is the default nature of the universe, of all things. And when people can start to see that, like what you're talking about here, then you can see everything is already here. You are in a fully stocked, we used the analogy in the past of a kitchen. You're in a kitchen that has everything you need to create any ingredient, any recipe you want to create. Yeah. What do you want to create?
Yeah. And it's awareness and to this. So
yeah.
The universe, like you say, is a well-stocked kitchen, right? With absolutely everything you need. And it always has been and always will be. And people will fight me on that until you start working with people and just tune them into, right, we're going to start noticing.
Yeah.
Now, this money program that I'm doing at the moment, which is about the abundance of wealth and money, we're focusing on money, but it's so much more than that. Because like you say, it's bringing in all these other areas that we can be abundant. Yeah. Guess what? The people who are in it are now feeling the abundance of their world. And actually one of them, messaged me today in the group because they've noticed that this year their apple tree is just filling up with apples. Right? That was already there. It was already happening, right? Other people, like I'm seeing dragonflies. I'm seeing these signs.
Wow.
Suddenly money, I find money all around my house. I've noticed these things. It's already there. We're just uncovering, we're just discovering it by being aware of it. So yeah, abundance to me starts with being abundant, right? And being in the energy of abundance. If I start my day with, today is going to be an extraordinary day. I live an extraordinary life and today is going to be extraordinary. Guess what? Every day is extraordinary because of how I'm being. So I notice all the ways in which it's extraordinary. Today I woke up and I was like, I'm going to be with Ryan and Nick. This is an extraordinary day. I didn't know Ryan and Nick, 3 years ago?
No.
Right. And then since then, we have spent time together. We've worked together. We've hugged a lot in a short space of time. We got a lot.
Not to make that sound weird or anything, but
I don't even care if it does sound weird. Right?
Yeah. best hugs ever.
Yeah. And again, this all came from, being abundant. Don't wait to be abundant. It's not something that will occur. Someone who has very little in terms of, material wealth or, cars, money, things, all the things you said, can be the most abundant person in the world.
Yeah. I'm listening to a book right now. It's called Mind Magic. And it's Into the Magic Shop. It's the same author, James Doughty, MD.
Excellent.
He starts his book out with the universe doesn't give an F about you. I'll filter this a little bit. And the reason it doesn't is because it has no F's to give. Right. And when we start looking at the universe that way, it's not that we don't matter. It's just that it's indiscriminate. The abundance is available to everybody. Now, access is a challenge for some people in their countries or in their cultures. It's a challenge. So they have to work a little differently around that abundance, but that abundance is still there. The uncertainty and the possibility that comes from the uncertainty is still there. And so if we box ourselves in and say, I don't have access to that, I can't get it, there's not enough, we're the ones creating that limitation. Like Chris Smith says, it's limitation is created, possibility just flat out exists. Abundance just flat out exists. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, yeah, it's there. And coming back to what you said about access and,
yeah,
some of the most abundant people have very little. And they have very little access to things, right? And part of that is because they don't have all the constraints and the limits that we're told. This is what makes you abundant. This is what makes you wealthy. This is what doesn't. We exist in a world where we're told that if I want to say I'm wealthy, someone's going to ask me how much money I've got in the bank or how much money I earn, right? Other people in environments where that isn't a thing. It's like that I'm abundant because I am. I don't need to justify. And that's my view on it now. It's like nobody gets to tell me whether I'm abundant or wealthy or happy or gorgeous or the best hugger in the world. I get to do that myself, right?
Yeah, they're all true.
It is all true as well. Right? And something Andy put in the comments there about gratitude creates abundance.
Yes,
I would add something to that. We've all talked a lot about being grateful and gratitude, and practicing gratitude is a way to create abundance, and it is, of course, it is, because once you slow down and start thinking about what are all the things I can be grateful for, a bit like a well-stocked kitchen. If I ever get caught up in lack, I will just wander around my world and start noticing all the things I have, all the things I have, all the people I know, the resources. I've got books everywhere around me, etc. What I have learned to be true that really helps is to take gratitude and go one step further and go into acknowledgement for yourself. Because the best way to create more abundance for me, for myself, is to acknowledge myself for everything I've created so far. So when I'm grateful for something, and and even if it's for someone like, okay, so Ryan, right? I am incredibly grateful that Ryan is in my life and that I got to meet him and hug him and all of that, right?
Yeah.
Incredibly grateful. And I'm not going to take anything away from the fact that that is pure gratitude for having someone like Ryan or Nick or Andy who's on here or anyone else that I've met in my life, right? Or the people that I love and care about, okay?
Yep.
So that gratitude is true. However, for me, I have felt much more abundant and wealthy once I started to acknowledge myself for how that came about. So because of who I am and how I show up in the world and the things that I've created from nowhere and nothing, right? Or nothing is nothing, but from nowhere, the things I've committed to, the things I've chosen, the things I've shown up for, the stories I've been willing to get past, the limits I've been able to go, do you know what? I'm not living there anymore. The hurt, the pain, the tears, all of that. That's why I have Ryan in my life.
Yeah.
So gratitude for me is so powerful.
Yeah.
If we add a little flavor of acknowledgement, and Ankush Jain was the person who started talking about, the power of acknowledgements. Yeah. It just, for me, helps me see how abundant I am, not like outside of myself. Right? Because great gratitude, I feel, can sometimes just take us outside of self. I'm grateful for all of these things that are around me. But acknowledgement takes us back to, but they're all around me because of me. Because of how it's shown up, right?
So we can't help but get back into the root journeys immediately. Anytime you go into growth like we are, you go back to your roots. And so our fourth journey is acceptance, which is acknowledgement. And the fifth journey is gratitude. And what I would enhance with that comment of gratitude creates abundance. No, abundance just is. Abundance just is. Gratitude is what allows us to see the abundance that's already around us. And so when you can acknowledge what is, then you can start to acknowledge the abundance. And that's where gratitude, I think, shifts into it. Is acknowledgement and acceptance is a step in transformation. Nathaniel Brandon talks about that, the second step in transformation. The third is adaptation. But in order to adapt, you don't have to do anything. You could see the abundance around you, and gratitude helps you to see it. It's like when you have enough, you also start to see, holy crap, I'm not only surrounded by enough, I'm surrounded, like Hugh says this a lot, by everything.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the language, when you say about, abundance just is, and I think this is coming back to you, and you have journeys of growth. Is, I think sometimes if you start talking to people who, and say abundance just is, it's too far far away from them to grasp it. So one of the things in the practices that
I love this. Thank you. Yeah.
Power of acknowledgement, power of gratitude, habits of connection, I call them, conversations with ourselves, way of creating ourselves, the declarations that we know in the work that, we've done with Steve Hardison, all of that. It's a way for people to get there. If you start with, saying to somebody who's not really done any of this work, if you'd said that to me like 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, abundance just is, I would have no idea what you were talking about whatsoever, and no way to get there. And it would have felt too far away. These habits we have that we can start, these practices, and this is what I say to people: look, suspend worrying about whether you believe it or get it right now. Are you willing to do the practice? Are you willing to get into these habits? And once they start doing it, like the habit of awareness. Okay, have a look around your world today. Go back into your world and go and see all the things that you're grateful for, and then go and see how you can acknowledge yourself for it. Then when you start saying to them that abundance just is, they're closer to it. They can see it.
Yeah. In the original book, The Giants and the Smalls, the original manuscript, I had written in there that when Rit had climbed the giant, stood on his shoulder and yelled, "Hey, Mr. Giant," and the giant spoke, he couldn't hear because the words were so big they wouldn't fit in his tiny ears. And so that was removed from the current edition, but it was that the words weren't quite landing yet because they were still too big for his small ears. And so I can completely relate to what you're saying. And I forget the journey that I've gone through to even get to that point where I can say abundance is, right?
Yeah. So it's just,
thank you for that.
Yeah. And I think it's, what we want to do in the world that we're in, right? Certainly I can speak for myself, but I think I speak for you guys. I want to know what you're giggling about now as well.
Because we're trying to switch the camera view and we keep doing it exactly the same time. So.
Okay. So we all move around. It's like musical chairs, right?
Yeah. We'll figure it out one day, but
I was taking notes and I'm like, I got to change the view.
I'll control the camera view, Ryan. You take notes.
Yeah. One of the things that because I talk about leadership and I talk about, self-leadership. And for me, leadership is not a title. It's not a hierarchy. It's just, we're all leaders of ourselves, right? So that's very much the language I use with people. And what I want to do as someone, and this is why you and I work together, Nick, because I want this gold that's coming out of every conversation I have to get to everyone I can possibly get it to, is I want to make sure that none of the language that we use, we talk about how our language creates our world and our intentional language, and that's another thing, another practice that I bring into people. Yeah. And because and's one of my words, but not but, and I want to make sure that it's not inaccessible for people, that it doesn't sound, like you say, too big. And I don't mean that in any derogatory way. No. It's just, it's too big sometimes, and people get scared off, and it's too far away, and it takes them back into that land of uncertainty. They're like, I don't understand this, therefore I can't go there.
That's so important. Yeah,
so
thank you.
It's like really important for me, and which is why I have a lot of very practical practices that people use, because it gets them there. Like the but and the and. It's like, we're just really simple. What about if you shifted every but in every sentence you ever said to an and? Just see what happens. That in itself is a way of switching people into gratitude, acknowledgement, and abundance without speaking to them about those things. It's like, just switch button and see what happens.
Nick, you have a really nice and.
I thank you. Well, the book, The Art of Accomplishment, was my first published book. And I talked about that in there of, the and world, and simple things that I've forgotten along the journey here of not forgotten, but they're so ingrained in who I am now that they are back in my smaller world. But they're so essential for somebody that's walking that same journey. The Art of Accomplishment, Steve Chandler called it a great starter's guide to essentially this giant's journey. And it's what you just talked about, because you get to a certain point and you forget all the things that you've gone through to get to where you are today. And so I appreciate you bringing that in. I'm going to pull in the next 3 journeys here all at once. Okay. So I'm going to pull in the journey of vision, surrender, and nurture. And I'll give you context for how we use those. And then I'm going to set you free here. Okay. So journey of vision is old French. It means to see in the mind or see in your world. And some people have aphantasia, so they don't see pictures. But however you imagine would be a better word, is what vision is. And so it's taking the resources of what is and what's possible and imagining something that doesn't yet exist. Lydia Nibley called it a pre-membering, where you create an image so clear it's like you have a memory of something that hasn't happened yet. And then you look at the word surrender, which is old French, to render over to another or to a higher power or to the pathway, whatever that looks like. And then the journey of nurture in our context is the small steps. So giants still take small steps. They're just bigger, and they're very intentional about their steps. And so when you look at the journey of nurture, it's not just the steps, it's the self-care. It's the self-leadership, like you talk about. I'm going to let you run here. So,
wow, there's a lot in there. I mean, and the 3 work so beautifully together.
They do.
You know, and you know, as you say, that the vision part, if we start with that, you know, is where we get to play. It's where we get to play and create whatever we want. So, you know, one of the things that I encourage people is to, you know, go back and read children's books and, you know, think about what you love doing as a child, because it gets rid of some of that logic that comes in that says this is impossible. You know, and there's so many different techniques we can use to create that vision. The best one is to, again, just practice, right? Practice it without all the if, buts, and maybes. So again, talking about like small steps, when I start talking to people about visioning and all of that, again, it can scare people. They're like, I can't do that. I don't know how to do that. I have no idea.
So good.
Like, okay, so just rather than having that as a big thing that you've got to do, what about if you just take out the if, buts, and maybes, right? And again, and the shoulds and the have tos and the can'ts and all those little words that get in the way. What would be possible if you didn't have those? And suddenly you start moving people into bigger pictures, visions that they didn't have when you started the journey. And I've seen that happen in a conversation. Someone will go from, oh, well, I'm not really sure if I can envision anything, to some amazing vision in a matter of moments when you just get them to walk through like that. So I think that's one thing I'd say about that. And there's ways to tap into that. Like I say, children's books, films, stories, music, art. And one of the greatest things, I think, is surround yourself with people who see more than you see right now. You know, I talk a lot about calling people forward. I don't really like the idea of pushing people. I like the idea of calling people forward. Go and hang out with people who call you forward. Go and look at what other people have created from nowhere, right? And believe them, like believe that this was just something that they envisioned that now is a reality. So I was watching something this morning on TV. There's a guy over here in the UK. I don't know whether you guys know him. He's called, oh God, his name's gone. Something Wicks. And he's like the body coach. He's like a body coach guy. And he started just doing this stuff he was like a PT before. He started doing this stuff during Joe Wicks, during COVID, to keep people, you know, active and exercising and stuff. And he now has an empire that is beyond anything he and his then girlfriend, now wife, and their 4 kids could have imagined. And I think he's got a festival happening this year, a whole festival from this one idea of, can I get people to move with me when they're stuck at home? And that's a great idea. So go and look at where other people have created a vision bigger than anything they could have imagined, and go and talk to them, go and spend time with them, hang out with them, etc. Which is a big thing for me. I love bringing people together, communities and groups and things.
Communities and groups absolutely changed my world too, because during COVID, same type of thing. Is Nick and I, we had planned on going into schools and being able to share with kids. Well, COVID, there was no going into schools anymore, so we had to shift gears, and that went to, hey, well, why don't we create a community where we created the Tribe of Giants, and being inside of that community and around other people absolutely shifted little by little. Sometimes it was bigger steps, you know, sometimes it was like, oh, mind blown type of things. But it was the shifts by being around other people that were a step or two ahead, or 3 or 4 or 5 down the road, that then could help me to step the next step and then expand, and then step the next step and expand.
Yeah. And also just, just different visions as well, because our imaginations are incredible, they're infinite. And then you go and hang out with some other people who've got an infinite imagination, and suddenly it's infinite on infinite, right? So it's not even just someone maybe further ahead of you or may have already done something. It's just they will see something that you haven't seen. And it might not be their thing. Liz Gilbert talks about in Big Magic, one of my favorite books, talks about ideas and how, they don't belong to anyone. They just sort of flutter down like butterflies. And sometimes someone grabs them and sometimes they flutter off and somebody else grabs them. So often you and I could be having a conversation and you're telling me about this, this idea you have or this vision or something. You don't do anything with it, but it then goes into my imagination. And it's not,
if I remember right, in that book, didn't she had an idea for a book, delay, and then she meets somebody at a conference and somebody else wrote almost the exact same book. Yeah,
absolutely. And how often does that happen where we say, oh, they've stolen my idea? And it's like, no, they haven't, right? You had an idea, and for whatever reason, it wasn't your idea to take forward, either because you didn't look at it or whatever, but it's not, it's just, they're just ideas. So I think around vision, that's it. Nick, you'll have to keep me on track here. The second one was surrender.
Yeah. Yep.
So giving over to a force. Well, I mean, what's better than giving over to a force bigger than ourselves and our imagination, right? If we really, surrender into the visions that we have, the ideas that we have, those moments in the shower when you're like, well, I could do this, or I could be here, or I could speak to this person. What better way to just, to honor those and to just give over to them by then, if I'm weaving this all together, by then doing intentionally taking some steps towards them. That's, I think, the key to all of this is, this is why ideas will filter in and then flutter off again, because unless you then go, okay, I think I'm going to take this and I'm going to move with it. I'm going to accept that this has been gifted to me for reasons I do not understand, or where this idea came from. My only responsibility now is to choose whether I want to take some steps intentionally towards it or not.
Okay, so I want to dig into your mind here about this. So I just had to surrender. My technology just failed on me, so I had to surrender and let it recycle.
It was perfect.
But the ego wants to take action. And it comes from this identity of, if I don't do something, nothing will happen. And so here's where I want to play, because when we focus in on our first 6 journeys, it's all about how do we rewrite that narrative of who you think you are. And then let that do the creating, let the being do the creating. And so it expresses from you. But the ego is really good. All of our protectors, all of our adaptives have, and I'm speaking bigger language, so I'm going to ask you to help me shrink this down. They get into the space of thinking that they are intuition, that they are spirit, that they are surrender. And so we get stuck in these loops of doing what the ego wants to do, the identity wants to do, thinking that we're taking new steps, but it's old patterns masked as the new. They're like, okay, I like what you just gave me. I'm going to put that on and pretend like and perform like I'm doing surrender.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
So
yeah.
How do you navigate that?
So, well, one of the things I do. One of the things, I don't even know where I am now. One of the things that I talk to my clients about, in this, is to really get them to see the ego, again, as not a term and a concept and a theory, is, to cut through the bullshit. Oh, sorry, it's swore. Is,
We're
just
we can handle it.
They're lies, right? And I call them that. It's like they're lies. They're lies that we tell ourselves. So and with very little judgment, because we know judgment is not, and shame you mentioned earlier is not a good place to start with this, is just get really honest with yourself about what's showing up right now. Right. So one of the ways to notice when our ego shows up is to just be more aware and to slow down a little bit when we feel ourselves, wanting to move forward with something. Again, we live in a world where we're like, we've got to do everything straight away, right? And people talk about being in action quickly. There's nuances, right? So, but it's just slowing down and thinking, if this was my mate telling me this story, right? This is a good way of doing it. It's like, if this is my friend telling me this story, what am I hearing between what they're telling me that I can see for them, that I'd be thinking, yeah, you're doing this for vanity, or you're doing this because you think you should, or you're doing this because you've always done it that way. We'd see it in somebody else, right?
Yeah.
You and Ryan have this going between you, and I know in relationships, this shows up. So if we can slow down a little bit, and through the habits of connection that I was talking about earlier, through the practices that we get people to work with, it's then actually we have a narrative with ourselves that becomes a little bit more honest, a little bit more without any judgment. Because the thing that will have us stop and just do it anyway is because we feel shame for having thought that or fallen into those ego traps. So it's like the first thing we need to do is just almost step back a little bit and go, oh, here she goes again. Here she is. She's getting me to believe this. And now I'm going to end up having to do all of this stuff. Okay, so all I need to do right now, and this is the great bit, is all I need to do right now is slow down, all right, and just have a really honest conversation with myself about what's going on here with no judgment, and not having to necessarily do anything right now. Because this is the other thing. People get straight into the doing, like you say, and they forget to just stay in the questioning, the uncertainty, the not knowing. We think we have to go straight to the doing. And I think a lot of ideas, visions get caught not just by the ego, and all the stories that can come in and have us show up a certain way, but also just by us rushing to do something before we've really given them a chance to grow and a chance to be. And just it's those little butterflies that Liz Gilbert talks about. Just let them flutter around for a while and see what they've got to reveal to you before we rush to do something. Because once we do something, we're, like you say, we're going down a certain track then. And often it's how we've always done things before.
Yeah, I want to hit on this because this has been really present for me. This, the past few weeks is the surrender and recognizing what's coming from ego and what's coming from, your God self, high self, however you want to look at that. The distinction that I'm seeing is that when I'm coming from ego, what I notice in me is that where I am is not okay. And where I should be is what I'm shooting for. And the gap in between, that suffering, is the gap between where we think we should be and where we are. And anytime I feel that unsafety, the insecurity, the fear, the adrenals are going fight or flight, my ego can do a really good job, my identity, at pretending to be spirit. So it puts on the mask of confidence, but inside it's turmoil. And so the way that I've been able to recognize lately where I'm coming from is to pay attention to the sensations in my body, because even though excitement and fear have the same chemical responses, the thinking patterns behind them are what are telling. So when I can recognize the sensations and then look at the thoughts that are behind that, if I'm coming from fear, if I'm coming from insecurity, if I'm coming from shame or not enoughness, I am 100% coming from ego. And even though it's masked as values or spirit, I can tell I'm not there because I'm 100% in the fear space, the in-between of not being enough. But we are always enough, right? So can you play with that a little bit?
Yeah, and I think, the way you describe it then, I think it's really interesting, and I think this all comes back to the core thing about, know thyself.
Oh, yeah.
And, get to know yourself, get to know that horrible bit in the middle where that's all
Wow,
going.
yeah.
Because again, these aren't concepts like, ego and, my higher self, and they're all a bit conceptual, right? It's like,
yes,
no, get to know yourself. And here's another thing, get to F it up at every now and again. I've done many things that are completely from ego, right?
Yeah.
I have done many things that are completely from vanity.
Yes.
Right. I have done many things that are from greed or envy or lack or fear. I have done all of them. And anyone who's either here in this room, you guys, I know that that's occurred for you. And I pretty much would hazard a guess it's occurred for every single human being that we've ever come across. right?
I would think so.
Right. So this, but the only way this is this uncertainty where we began this journey, right? You've got to be uncertain with yourself as well, and you've got to be okay with it. So some of this is, I think in the preamble that we put out about this is stop overcomplicating it, right? Just get to know yourself. This lightness that I talk about, again, making it accessible for people is, just allowing them without any big language that's too big for their ears to hear. Do you know what's going on right now? Oh, well, I'm being a prat. Okay. What being a prat mean then? What does that? Oh, that's quite an English word, I think. But
just define that one for me. I don't know what that is, so I like
being
that.
a bit of an idiot, being a bit silly or something like that. It's like or if know thyself. Be okay to sort of go, how am I showing up right now? It's like a very obvious way of who am I being, right? How am I showing up right now? And be okay with however it is. Right? I know that I'm showing up. I know, I can sense, coming back to what you said, that body feeling is like, I can sense I'm being a bit, childish right now, right? Or I might be playing the class clown a little bit because that's my defense mechanism, right? If I can make people laugh, then they won't notice that I feel really insecure right now and what have you.
Hi, I'm Ryan, and I do that sometimes.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Right? And
Me
Devon
too.
Braxton, who many of us know, is really good, in the Game Changer, that he runs. He's so good at holding people to that. Yeah. It's like, there you are doing exactly what you do all the time. But some of that, and do different. But some of it is just getting to know that yourself and recognizing that the best way of getting to know all of that stuff is for it to occur. So you do the thing that's completely vanity led, right?
And you can start to make those shifts and adjustments because you're aware. There's nothing to do if you're not aware. There is that fear though, like of taking the radical responsibility. It took me, and it's still a practice. So don't get me wrong there. I'm by no means perfect at it, but it took a while of going down the Giants journey for me to be able to truly look myself in the mirror and have some honest conversations. And but as I did, you know what I found? I found my best friend. I found my true authentic self. I found somebody that I could hold space for myself, that I could love, and I could understand. I could have empathy for and say, yeah, I get it, buddy.
Yeah.
And through that, then I could also lift myself out. I could also then go to Nick or other giants. I could travel to England and get a giant hug that I've needed so badly, and have somebody just tell me how much they love me. And somebody that I hadn't met 3 years before that I got to meet in person, who wears hot pink and can see people, and then help them see themselves. And as you do that, it could be, or could feel very scary, but it is the most liberating, exciting journey that you can go down.
Beautiful. I mean, Ryan's just said it all, right? And I think that thing about being able to look ourselves in the mirror and see ourselves and have that radical responsibility and accountability. Yeah. Right. Again, takes us right back to that beginning of uncertainty, because we want to be certain. We want to be certain about ourselves. And the truth is we're not. So the sooner we can actually accept we're not really sure about ourselves and be okay with ourselves and love ourselves and be in integrity with ourselves first, because we're so busy trying to do it out there with everybody else. And this has been another big theme in my work over the last few weeks with my program, my leadership group, is around, starting with ourselves.
Yeah. Yep.
Really beginning with ourselves, and not just with the stuff of like, I'm going to look after myself first and make sure my cup's full. It's like being radically honest with ourselves first. It's making sure that we are not putting people ahead of us just because we always have done. But also integrity. We did a lot of work on integrity this month, and we really shifted people's understanding of it, right? Integrity is like, keep your word. Integrity is honoring your word. And sometimes that takes radical responsibility and radical accountability. Because again, I reckon me, you, Nick, everyone else here, right, has had times where we have not honored our word, but we might have kept our word.
Yes. Yeah.
Haven't honored it because something's shifted, something's changed. And then we beat ourselves up because we've kept our word, but we've totally dishonored something that's going on for us.
Yeah.
So to be in true leadership, being able to honor our word and show up when we have to sort that out, be in honesty, responsibility and accountability to ourselves and then other people is the true meaning of integrity, which gets missed most of the time. I learned this I worked with a coach that I met through you guys, actually, Steve Crivder, right? And it was one of the things, love Steve.
Excellent human being.
I love Steve not more than fish, Brian, just to be clear.
Okay, good.
Okay, just so you're clear. But he taught me about like true integrity because I've been keeping my word all over the place, right? But dishonoring myself and how I want to show up in the world in a sort of false sense of integrity.
Yeah.
The damage that was doing, again, coming back to what Ryan was saying, then I had to look in the mirror and go, right, this needs sorting out with yourself first and then with other people. And it's a journey. It's an ongoing.
It is a journey, right? I created an AI app because my protectors, my adaptives are so good at playing the game. They've got all the knowledge, all the wisdom, hundreds of books, thousands of clients, all of this stuff is like, my mind is just stacked. And so it's really good at playing the game. And so, like you just mentioned, until you can see the game, you can't really change it. And you need that mirror to reflect back what's actually going on. So because I'm so good at convincing by my story and all the knowledge is that I can't see what's really going on. So I created an AI app to help me do that. It's called The Mirror, because I even try to convince it, not even consciously, that I'm right. I'm seeing the world right. And this thing hits me back so hard. Like you say, radical honesty. That's what I need to change. It hits me back and says, I see your story. I see where you're coming from, but this is what's really going on. And that accurate reflection, you have Steve Crivda that helps you do that, and I think we all need some version of that, whether it's an application or a coach or a mentor. We have to be able to see ourselves, and we can't change until we can. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, well, yeah, because we don't see ourselves how other people see us. We can't. It's impossible, right? I also think in terms of coming back to this sort of, the journeys that people go on.
Yeah.
And Ryan mentioned it there, underpinning all of that, it has to be real love for yourself. And love for me is is a leadership quality. And I don't mean in terms of loving other people. I mean, loving ourselves, like so many things, if you try and hold a mirror up to yourself and question everything that you do without an underpinning of love and compassion for yourself.
Yes.
And real love and compassion for other people, that's a dangerous game to be playing, right?
Absolutely.
Agreed.
Yeah. So, and surrounding yourself with people who can catch you, because sometimes when we really see what's going on for ourselves, it can bring up a lot of pain, a lot of grief. Some of my mirrors, using that I saw about myself.
Yeah.
And they're not the things that I've done wrong. They're just how I've been showing up for a long part of my life, because they were my protectors and adapters and that. And you helped me uncover one of those, Nick, in one of our conversations, right? Yeah. When I saw her, there was a hell of a lot of grief and sadness.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, all of this, has to come with a big old dollop of love, a big old dollop of compassion, forgiveness.
Oh man, huge, right? Huge.
Space, friends, support, people who love you regardless.
Yeah.
I've one of the things that in the work that I've done with other people, and then with other people for myself. I was telling this story on the book reading in the Being Movement on Friday about my experience of going to work with Steve. It was one of the most profound moments where I was able to step fully into really showing up with all my stuff and knowing that I would be held and knowing that it would be okay, and knowing that I would be loved regardless. And that was not a story I had in my ego, right? My adapters, my protectors were like, you tell anyone this and you are in danger.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. They might say it's okay, but really, no, you are now, very vulnerable and on the edge. So having this kind of level of understanding of ourselves, and again, know thyself is also love thyself.
Yeah, that's well, and that ties into the 2 great commandments, right? Love your neighbor as thyself, then love God, right? So it's one of those things is fundamental to humanness is that self-understanding, self-compassion, self-leadership. I'm so grateful for the way you framed this, because we often get on our journey and then we start to judge others based on where we are. We want them to operate from our level at where we're at. And then when they don't, we're disappointed and we, set these expectations. I can only imagine, if I had to have Ryan do everything I got to do over here, he would absolutely lose his mind. But if I judge him over what I know how to do versus the way he does life, it would be completely unfair. Right. Because he has his way of showing up. I have my way of showing up. So,
and you translate that then into, leadership. And, I was doing some kind of reflection on this before we spoke, and leadership to me is rooted in everything we've just spoken about in the last little section of love and compassion and loving ourselves and loving others. And that's often what's missing in leadership. So we, we've got, and I include myself in this, as you say, because we can fall into this trap as well. Right? If we're not showing up as a leader in whatever, and again, this is, for me, there's no titles around leadership. We're all leaders of our own lives, of families, communities, groups, and then we might also be appointed as a leader, or we might be, apply for a leadership job or something like that. But actually, one of the things that we're missing in this is this understanding that the root of it all, and it becomes a bit cliched, is deep love for ourselves and other people. And we miss that. And that might sound a little cliche, but I really, truly believe, and as you say, that includes not judging people for not being where we think they should be.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. And taking responsibility for it, because if we're leading them, we need to call them forward. If they're not where they need to be, then it's our responsibility to call them forward, not blame them for not being there.
Okay, I want to sit here for just a sec. I know we're toward the end of this show, but I want to hit on this. This is super essential. Now, the 12th journey is legacy, impact, the gift by will. Okay, if we hit on that, great. If we don't, great. I think leadership, self-leadership ties into it. Ryan, you're on mute. Do you have a comment?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think this ties exactly into that. Because it's the legacy, it's the pulling people, it's what you that gift by will, it's the turning around and helping somebody else down that journey, and that's the true love, that's the seeing them and helping them move forward in it. But
I like that. No, that's perfect. That's a perfect addition here, because how do you call people up without calling them out? If we're talking about leadership, right? And the word lead means to guide. I have on our website, I'm not the guru. I'm just the guide, or the guy that will step out first, and if people don't have self-leadership within themselves and you call them up, they're not going to hear that as calling up. Right. So how do you handle that?
Yeah. I mean, I like to say calling forward.
Okay.
Again, because I just think it had, ARP still has that sort of hierarchical sense
okay.
for me, right?
I like that.
So I tend to talk about calling people forward. And actually somebody, talk about the mirror, someone reflected that back to me. I wasn't aware of that. Someone said to me, what you do is you call me forward. And I was like, oh, I like that.
That is nice. Yeah.
I think as leader, again, this is so sort of, the word's gone out of my head, not how we've been taught to be leaders. Well, most of us haven't been taught to be leaders. That's one of the issues, right? Is we've never been taught to be leaders. But one of the things that we've been told to be a leader is, is not calling people forward. It's telling them and what have you, and hiding things and knowing everything and being the one who's like, willing to be out front, can't be wrong.
Current management styles, right?
Yes, right, exactly, right. But actually, you know what? The leader who is going to call other people forward is the leader, a bit like you were saying there about being the guide. It's like, I've gone there before, and here's some stuff I found out along the way, right? Here's where my ego showed up. Can you see where your ego might be showing up right now? Here's how I failed, right? And here's what I learned by failing. Can you see how you might be failing right now, and how it may be the very thing that has you succeed?
Right.
So for me, it's always about, one, showing up in true self-leadership, which includes radical honesty, radical accountability, responsibility, really living my values, not just having a list of values that I list out, but really living my values is how I call people forward, because they see me living it, right? They see me being it. They feel it. One of the things that over the last, year particularly, is leadership is felt. I'm not a leader because I tell people I'm a leader. I'm a leader because people feel my leadership and they're called forward by it.
Yeah, that's powerful right there. The invitation versus obligation. A leader will invite, a leader will step out front, a leader will do their work. They'll do self-leadership. And by that nature, they're essentially laying a pathway for somebody if they want to follow that pathway. But when it becomes requirement and obligation, that's no longer leadership. That's requirement and obligation. That's culture. That's society. That's, the stuff we're used to. And I think I have people that call me forward. We'll use that frame, because there are things in me that are still playing small, and they see that. And I'm like, man, it's not always easy to see, but they call me forward. And because I'm doing my own self-leadership, I'm able to see it from a space of lovingly pulling me forward rather than calling me out. Right. I don't like to be called out.
No,
it doesn't feel good.
And the people who call us forward are the people who will share with us that they learn from us. Right.
Yeah.
They learn from us. I learned this with Steve Hardison. When I had my session with him, the last thing he said to me was, "I've learned so much from you today."
Wow, beautiful.
Right.
Yeah.
So and I share that with my with the clients that I get to work with. I share what I've learned from them, what I see in them that I didn't see in myself, what their questions allow me to see about myself and other people that I can then share back with them. So the other thing with a leader is that they're constantly learning, and they're constantly looking to the people that they want to call forward to see what they're learning from them. And then they get to share it with other people.
Yeah.
Right. Which is what you guys are doing. It's what I'm doing. It's what other people do. And so the other part of your question there, I think, was about if people aren't in their own self-leadership, are they able to see that? Again, I think some of that is meeting them where they are. What can they see right now? When I call them forward, I might not be calling them forward from here to here. I might be just calling them forward here.
Yeah.
Right? And then the other thing is keep calling them forward. Acknowledgements, we've talked about acknowledgements, we've talked about gratitude, we've talked about all these practices. Is like the way to do that is you keep calling them forward.
Yeah.
And it's not like a done and done. It's I've seen you step up. I really want to acknowledge you for that.
Yeah.
You see what's happened in you stepping up in this space. Can you see what's occurring
like that? Yeah.
around you as you step up? Have you stopped and had a look around and seen how different it is? One of the questions came up in one of my groups this month was around someone saying, I'm scared I'm going to fall back into my old habits. Right. And I shared with them lovingly that they're not who they were when those habits existed. So I really called them forward to see that that's their ego coming back in with an old story. And I'm like, you are so far removed from there. Your self-leadership is now of a level that you might for a day, because we're human, right?
Yeah.
But you will not, that bit where that language that
You are
have
no longer that, right?
are no longer that. Exactly, right?
Yeah.
And that will continue because I'm still on it. I don't know about you, but I haven't arrived
Oh,
yet. I'm,
oh no, not even close. Yeah.
right? Thank
Yeah.
God. Where's the fun otherwise, right? So I think, acknowledging people as they're coming through and getting them to stop and see for themselves what's around them and what's shifted and what's changed, and then sharing the practices with them. How can you every single day show up with acknowledgement, appreciation, gratitude, awareness, honesty about where you are right now? Because the ego will come in and lie and go, you're doing it now, but you'll slip up at some point. No, I won't, because I'm not that person anymore. There's no way.
I like that. I mean, and as far as impact goes, that as you change the inner story of who you are, your identity, then your outer world has to change. So I just recently learned from research that transformation isn't about what you're doing. It's about who you are. And that identity, like you just described it, creates everything in your world. So until you change who you think you are, none of this is going to change. You could throw every behavior, every pattern in the world on it. It's not going to change, right?
Yeah. Which is why, the leadership can be such a tough area, because when you talk to leaders, they're looking for the outside stuff. They're looking for the doing. What can I do differently, right? And they're always actually looking outside of themselves to the people around them. My team's not doing this. They're not doing this. The community's not doing that. Whatever it is, and as you say, it's like pointing it back to, right, we come back to who are you being? And it's not some concept. It's not a concept, right? It's okay. How do you show up in your meetings? How do you show up in your communication? How are you showing up in your private life? Because if you're showing up in your private life a certain way and then you're leading your business another way, that's going to impact. It can't, it's more than a concept. It's a lived experience of who am I being?
Yeah.
And the greatest thing about that is when you're talking to people about this is it's not about your team or the market or the conditions or the business or anything. It's about you, which is the very best news. Because guess what? I'm fully in control of me.
Yeah.
So I can just, you guys out there can carry on doing whatever you want, and the market can carry on doing whatever it wants, and the world can carry on doing whatever it wants. I can't directly change that, but I seem to spend all my energy on that, right?
Yes.
If I shift all my energy back onto how I'm being, the great news is I get to choose who I'm being in every moment, in every day, in every week, in every circumstance. Therefore, I am in control of my world completely.
Yeah. Ryan, final thoughts from you?
Man, I'm sure grateful for you. The love that you exude, to see other people, and I'm going to get emotional because this is you mean a lot to me. Somebody that we hadn't up until last year met in person, but the amount of love that came through to see me, you can't explain it. It's unexplainable. It's so powerful. When we do this for other people, it helps them to be able to shift. It helps them to be able to build confidence that yes, they can do this. When Rit got to talk to Remy and got to be seen, who's felt so small, and he got to be seen by a giant, it shifted everything for him. Inside of him sparked the possibility that I could be something more than I am. I don't know if I could ever be him, but I can be something more or something different. And you do that for people. You've done it for me. The feeling, the hug was something that I looked forward to for so long. I had imagined it. I had seen it as clear as day. How it happened, it's a miracle in of itself. Stepping off of a plane and late at night, having a delayed flight, and me and Nick were kind of upset that we had missed so much stuff, and it fell in line exactly how it was supposed to be. And the first person, as I round the corner, I see you, and the hug that I got it transferred all of what you see in me physically, then it came in too. I felt everything that you see in me and more. And when people have that experience of being around you, and they've got the experience today for an hour and 15 minutes, I know that they can feel that at home. You need to. This is the shame and guilt too, but you need a Rebecca Shannon. I am telling you, you cannot live without somebody like that. Having somebody in your corner that sees you, because you cannot see yourself like other people do. She will see you. She will lift you up. She will love you more than Pink. And she loves Pink a hell of a lot.
Yeah.
So go be around Rebecca Shannon, because she will absolutely help you change your life, because she has changed mine. I know it's true. So thank you so much for doing that.
Oh, I love
That's
you.
awesome.
And I'm nodding along there, Nick. I know we're probably out of time, but I'm nodding along there because, and people might be thinking, gosh, she's hearing all this great stuff. Is one of my journeys has been to receive.
Yeah.
And the other reason I'm nodding is we are all that.
Yeah.
I'm no different, I'm no different. We all have what Ryan has just explained in us that we can offer to other people, every single one of us. And I have learned to be that for other people. And to just complete that story, because I think it's beautiful, again, to reflect back, is that at the end of the Birmingham experience, we had Martin Cannon speaking, which broke my heart open wide for lots of reasons, right? And in that moment, because of what was created in that transformation that Ryan was talking about there, I knew there was one place I needed to be, and that was with Ryan.
Mm.
And I went and found him, and everything that we'd alchemized in that transformation for Ryan, guess what, came right back round when I needed it.
Yeah.
And I sent Ryan a message the other day to remind him of that moment for me, because that was the safe place I needed. I had, again, in gratitude and acknowledgement of myself, I had created that by who I am in the world. So I know I've always got a safe place to go.
Yeah. It's beautiful. Well, thank you both. Incredible show, incredible messages. Thank you, Rebecca, for slowing me down to remember the small steps it took to get where I am. And I'm nowhere near done in my journey. That's essential for those that are watching. Where you are is perfect. I have in the news stories of Rit and his journeys, the 12 journeys. He wears a necklace. It's the necklace that my brother gave me as the X in the stone. And the X symbolizes that you're exactly where you're supposed to be. You're right on time. You're doing what you need to be doing. It's in our logo. Yeah. And it's hit in every single journey, because it's a reminder to come back here, right? Because we are here. You are the X. You are where you're going. And wherever you're at is perfect, because that's where you need to step from. Your next step comes from right there. And so there's no need to shame it. There's just a need to love it and understand it and have compassion for it, and then move forward from there. If you need help with that, reach out to Rebecca at complimentcoaching.com. Reach out to us on our my12journeys.com. Either way, we're both here to serve you, and we're here to help you grow into that giant that you're capable of. As Hugh says, pea soup is delicious. It is delicious. And there are more foods on the table. And so we love you. Thank you for being a part of the show and our community. Go make it a giant day. And we will see you in the next video.
Love you guys. Thank you.